It's spooky time.
Ooh.
Welcome. Here's our theme song. I have to go fill up my water. Hello, hello, and welcome to Temple of the False Pod, where our decks are not optimized, but they sure as heck are spooky. And fun. I'm Andy.
I'm Booze.
It's the end of October, so it's nice. It's brisk out.
It's my favorite time of year.
While we're recording, it's a nice autumn rain, but it's only gonna get brisker from here. I'm so excited. We've had some spoilers, but not all the spoilers for Midnight Hunt.
Yeah.
Which should be fully spoiled by the end of the week, but we got a schedule to make. So
it isn't until you say Innistrad Midnight Hunt that you realize you really want to enunciate that carefully.
Well, this is a family show, Bruce. Just kidding.
Thank you.
Today we just wanted to really steep in that Innistrad flavor. So I was like, hey, let's pick 3 cards from Innistrad, whether it's from a standard legal set, what's the word? Why do I always forget this word? It's not
Eternal?
It's not the main stuff. It's the ancillary, I guess, product.
Ancillary product?
There we go.
Sure.
We've got the standard legal stuff that was like the how many ever sets? 6 sets?
Yeah.
And then we've got things like Commander 2018, 2019.
I think so, yeah.
Some madness stuff.
Yep.
So you bring in all that Innistrad flavor, and I was like, let's pick 3 cards, whatever they are.
Right, and I was like, Andy, why 3? Why not 13? That would be Innistrad flavor. And then Andy hit me over the head and said, idiot, 13? Are you crazy?
And this is our 39th episode, and 3 times 13 is 39.
Got there.
I'm a math nerd. I wasn't around for either time that we went to Innistrad. I was alive, but I wasn't playing Magic, is what I mean. So I've been really excited for these sets.
I was really looking forward to this. Well, I was sort of looking forward to these 2 sets coming up.
Mm-hmm.
I thought, Innistrad, great. I remember vaguely liking the previous ones when they were here, and that hopefully these will be good too. And then I realized that as I started going through it, I started realizing how many good cards had come out of Innistrad, and if anything, this has just made me more excited for the 2 new sets that are coming out. My level of excitement has gone from a 6 up to an 8 or 9.
Whoa!
So, yeah, getting a chance to really look through this, and not only are the cards good, but I really enjoyed the storyline of it. Sure, there was a bit of an Eldrazi twist there that I wasn't excited about, but I did like the way the story went. I like what they're doing with that storyline, and I'm looking forward to seeing where it goes from here, and seeing all of the cards they choose to put together for these for the 2 new sets.
Yeah, I've had obviously a distant relationship with the story of Innistrad, but it seems pretty straightforward. And then there's Emrakul, who gets trapped in the moon and terrorizes people from there. Interested to see how that plays out now, if things are going linearly. I'm excited because I really liked before. It was like the old school, like vampires, werewolves, zombies, like
right.
the classic stuff. And then with the introduction of Emrakul on Innistrad, it's kind of like who scares the scary people,
Right.
Tentacles.
Yes.
So it'll be interesting now that they're kind of leaning towards more like of a modern horror aspect. But yeah, I mean, I'm super stoked.
Yeah. So, given all that, we've each chosen 3 cards to talk about from the world of Innistrad. I don't believe either one of us have chosen any of the new cards. Rather than pick and choose from the cards that are revealed now, only to have you say, well, why wouldn't you pick this later on? Because, well, we didn't know. So we sort of kept our focus on the older aspects.
And with that too, there wasn't really any like restriction. It was the most vague. Let's talk about 3 cards each.
Yeah. So if we don't happen to discuss what you think is the best card in all of Innistrad, it's not because we don't think it's the best card. It's because we just chose other cards to talk about.
Yeah, these are by no means the best cards. 1 or 2 of them might be, but we'll get there.
Well, the cards I picked I thought were pretty awesome, but
yeah,
I wouldn't necessarily classify them as the best. So, Andy, you want to start?
Yeah, I'll start. My first one, Lightning Mauler. It's 1 in a red. It's a 2/1 with Soul Bond. It's a creature, obviously. Human Berserker. As long as Lightning Mauler is paired with another creature, both creatures have haste. So Soul Bond is you may pair this creature with another unpaired creature when either enters the battlefield. They remain paired for as long as you control both of them. I just found this really cool because I mean, we've seen Soul Bond on the battlefield. There are a few cards out there that get a lot of play in Commander, and I don't think I've ever seen Lightning Mauler before. While searching through these cards, I was like, oh, this is interesting because you have it, and then you put down another creature, and now they can be paired, and it has haste.
Right.
And then you can feel free to attack with it because if it dies, you can put down another creature and give it haste, and like kind of keep this one back as either a blocker or something, I guess.
Right.
It's not great, but it's a very cheap way to give things haste.
Right. I particularly like the Mauler. If you're running the Mauler in, well, I guess primarily black-red, 1, you're giving the creature haste. 2, in a black-red deck where you're looking to sacrifice a creature, it's very handy because the difficulty with Soul Bond is once the 2 creatures are bonded, if neither one of them dies, the next card you put on the battlefield doesn't get haste.
Right.
However, if you are sacking creatures regularly as part of what your deck does, then in theory, the creature that's paired with that's bonded with the Mauler could be the next one to die, and then in comes the next creature with haste, and away you go again. So,
I love it.
Yeah.
As somebody who likes to sack a lot of creatures, it tickles my fancy.
Right.
Yeah, there's not much I want to say about it. But it's, I feel like it's underplayed.
Right. And it's interesting. Something I never really thought about with Soul Bond. You can pair a creature with a token creature when it comes in. Normally, I just, for whatever reason in my head, the only time I ever bond any of these creatures is when it's usually with another creature card, because it has some effect or some ability.
Right.
You want to put the two pieces of awesome together, and it's just
this would go well.
It works with tokens. So if you've managed to create a loop where you've got a 5/5 token creature coming into play at the start of each of your turns, well, you now have a 5/5 that has haste.
Oh, Dragon Master Outcast.
So, yeah. So you can make that work.
Yeah.
All
I think that's an interesting route to go with the tokens too. Like, it would go well in like a Naya tokens deck, or even just a like a green-red Gruul tokens.
Well, yeah, because, I mean, you're going to get tokens when come in, haste, attack once, sack it for mana, for some kind of benefit, and go from there. And you don't even have to sack it right away. You can sack it, just before the next one comes in, if that's the way you want to work it. However, it makes for an interesting combo.
Yeah. What's your next one? Or what's your first one?
My first one. All right. For my first one, I'm going to go with Gisela, Blade of Gold Knight. So I'm going for the big guns right off the bat.
Good.
Yes. Gisela, Blade of Gold Knight. For those of you who don't know, it costs 7. That's 4 a red and 2 white mana. It's a legendary creature angel. It has flying and first strike. And if a source would deal damage to an opponent or a permanent an opponent controls, that source deals double that damage to that player or permanent instead. If a source would deal damage to you or a permanent you control, prevent half of that damage rounded up. So what this means is, and Gisela is also a 5/5. So when Gisela attacks, it means she's doing 10 damage, not 5. And whoever does damage to her, it gets cut in half, rounded up. So if a 5/5 creature is blocking Gisela, it only ends up doing 3. You can see how difficult this is. It becomes to kill Gisela, especially when you realize she also has first strike. So a first strike that's doing 10 damage doesn't generally leave a lot of blockers behind to finish to do the 9 that would do 9 points of damage that would get cut in half and rounded up to kill her. More importantly,
it's a political move.
It's a political move. It strongly encourages your opponents to go elsewhere. And you say to yourself, man, it's just a bad play. Everybody knows that if you're running Gisela and she's out there, they should be attacking you. Because you are clearly the big threat, especially if you're looking around the table and everybody's using creature combat. Because suddenly it's hard. But it is amazing. Players will not come at you. It's just a waste of their time. They're not willing to do it.
They're going for the value.
But, they're going for the value because now suddenly they think, I've got all these 1/1 tokens and now they're all going to do 2 points of damage? Awesome. So they swing at other players and they score big points. And you practically are just sitting there doing nothing. Because why attack with Gisela and risk losing her when you can just sit there? Because the red player can't do enough damage to her to kill her. They're relying on creature removal or a mass removal spell or something along that line. And, that...
It almost becomes oppressive. But it is just... and the fact that it's 7 mana is good.
This... For this effect, you don't want it to be much cheaper. And we are talking, especially when this came out, red and white were not particularly great at accumulating, at ramping. Obviously, with treasures, with Smothering Tithe, with all of the various other options, it's gotten a lot better, and getting to 7 mana in these 2 colors is a lot easier than it used to be. But... it's just been a spectacular card in more than one of my decks. So I always appreciate getting a chance to play an angel wielding 2 swords. There's a lot of red enchantments that add damage or do a damage each turn or do a damage when something happens, whether it's creature entering the battlefield or whatever. Pick your poison. With Gisela doubling all of that, so many things that were tolerable before because it was just a point here or a point there gets miserable. And I keep thinking of, is it Court of Ire?
So Court of Ire is 5 red? No, 3 red? It's one of those.
Yeah.
It's an enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, you become the monarch. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you are the monarch, deal 7 damage to target.
Yeah, that's
if you are not,
14 damage, folks.
If you are not monarch, it deals 2 instead.
Right. Now,
which is 4, which is...
I find when Court of Ire hits, what happens is everyone attacks you because nobody wants you to be doing 7 to anybody because 7's too much. You can take out... There's a lot of things you can do with 7 damage. So this now you only have 2. Well, okay, you can still get rid of a lot of creatures with 2 damage, but it's a little more manageable. So with Gisela out, even if you're not the monarch, you're doing 4, and 4 takes out most of the creatures. So it's just sort of an example of just how oppressive Gisela can get. So Andy, what's your next card?
Helana, Kessick Ranger. 3 green, 3/4. Human archer. With reach. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, you may pay 2. When you do, that creature deals damage equal to its power to target creature. So, along the same lines, what is it? Rabid Bite, also an Innistrad card. Just kind of tacked onto an ability that you can just kind of keep paying for if need be.
Now, Andy, did you mention that it has partner?
Oh, it does have partner.
Oh, it has partner. All right, folks. So, talk about slow rolling the lead.
Alone Helana is fantastic. The one Commander Legends draft I did, I played against her, and it's nuts. Having Rabid Bite tacked onto your creature entering the battlefield, especially since it's not a spell, is very powerful. It kind of gets around a lot of counters.
Right. And this isn't fight either. These creatures are not taking the damage back. They're just dealing it.
So if you're running a lot of Death Touch, it's excellent. She'd go great in...
and you can partner her with something that gives all your creatures Death Touch, right?
I'm sure.
Remembering right?
Yeah. Falthis, I think.
I think so.
Falthis, Shadowcat Familiar, Commanders you control have Netherlands and Death Touch.
Okay. But either way, your point stands.
Yeah. I mean, there's plenty of things out there that give things Death Touch. Yeah. What is his name? Fang something. Finn, the Fang Bearer. 1 and a green, 1/3, Death Touch from Kaldheim. She would go great in that deck because he says whenever a creature you control with Death Touch deals combat damage to a player, that player gets 2 poison counters. So you're going to be filling your deck up with Death Touch things anyway. They come onto the battlefield, you pay the 2, you kill something, and then your other creatures can get right through. It's great. I guess Bruce also wants me to talk about Elena, Kessick Trapper, her partner.
That just makes sense. That's generally what I think when they introduced this. That was it was the overall, but they didn't do a partner with because I mean, why not open it up? This is a legendary creature with a nice ability, and choose to partner her with. There are so many options now with partner that you can go all over, and I think that this is a sweet way to bump that up a little.
Yeah, I really liked with Commander Legends that they had like some clear lines for certain pairings, but still let you have the freedom to pick and choose, to mix and match. Elena is 4 and a red, 4/3, first strike, human scout. Tap, add an amount of red equal to the greatest power among creatures you control that entered the battlefield this turn. So they're not like super synergistic, but they're both about getting creatures, hopefully big ones, out on the battlefield, which makes sense for green and red.
Yeah.
You look at their art; they're very much an Innistrad, and they're just the whole aesthetic is fantastic, and I'm so excited for fall. Yeah. So I kind of wanted to reach out with that one and be like, hey, look at this card that's clearly on Innistrad, but not like a standard set.
Right. To me, the only restriction with Helana is just remember that paying 2 more on top of having just paid for a creature can get pricey.
Yeah.
So it isn't as though you're going to be, shotgun blasting everything. There is going to be a certain amount of pick and choose. You're probably only playing a creature every, well, I guess it depends on your deck.
This is green, Bruce.
I understand that.
2 things I know about green: lots of mana, lots of creatures.
Generally speaking, realistically, you're looking to play the big creature.
Yeah.
Pay 2 and then just hammer something or hammer another creature. So I don't know that you're going to be paying this too many times. My thought was, if you can, if you've got a spell that puts X number of creatures into play.
Yeah.
How many times are you willing to pay the extra 2 to have each of those creatures do that amount of damage? But so maybe in those situations that might be a little difficult, but I mean, that's a corner case, and Helana is quite happy to just pump up what you're already planning to do with green.
Yeah, and I think with Helana specifically, I think she makes a great commander because I'm of the mindset that generally the uncommon legendaries make really good commanders because they let you flex a little bit more of the creative deck building aspect, but also that it's not too powerful, but it's not too linear.
It's nice because you can build around it if you want,
right?
But you're not going to be horribly punished, especially for a card like this, if you don't. I mean, it just does what green wants to do. But yeah, and it's not overpowering. It's
fine. What are you following up with her, or what are you following her up with?
Well, I'm gonna stick with green. I'm gonna go with a card that, well, to be fair, probably doesn't work real well with Helana, but I love me some Parallel Lives.
Oh, goody.
So Parallel Lives is essentially the what was supposed to be the fixed doubling season. I like to refer to it as my second copy of doubling season. Yeah. It doesn't do quite as much, but Parallel Lives costs 3 and a green. It's an enchantment, and it says if an effect would put 1 or more tokens onto the battlefield under your control, it puts twice that many of those tokens onto the battlefield instead. So this is tokens, not tokens or counters. So it's nowhere near as good as doubling season. Mm-hmm. But when you consider that a lot of the decks that you were looking to put doubling season in are decks that didn't involve an excessive number of +1/+1 counters, then suddenly Parallel Lives is almost as good.
Yeah.
I play a ton of token decks, and when you get the opportunity to have 5 tokens, it doubles it. And we're talking about Innistrad, so you could look at an Army of the Damned with 13 zombies.
Yep.
And with Parallel Lives, you're looking at 26 right off the bat.
Yeah.
Obviously I've taken a scenario where, that's one of those almost as good as it gets scenarios.
Yeah. Or imagine paying Madness from under the floorboards.
Right.
Where you make it's for Madness is black X, and you essentially would make X tokens, but with Parallel Lives
you're making 2X tokens.
2X. Gets out of hand real fast.
Yeah. I also like Parallel Lives. I mean, I don't need a spell that's going to create X tokens to feel like Parallel Lives is doing its job.
Yeah.
Anytime.
Yeah.
Anytime you're getting a token creature,
or treasure.
Well,
is it just creatures?
No, it's treasures as well.
Goody.
Any token, so you can double up your tokens. So yeah, so I mean, if you're getting treasure, you're getting double the treasure. But I mean, I look at it like, if I get a 3/3 creature, now I'm getting 2 of them. It doesn't take too many of those types of scenarios to start to say that Parallel Lives is now worth it.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's a 4-mana enchantment. And I feel like I've always looked at it as like, oh, it's so powerful, but it's not really. I mean,
well, it is. I just think that it just gets compared to Doubling Season, which is redonkulous. I mean, you can't compare it to a broken card. It's like saying that, well, compared to Black Lotus, this isn't very good. Like, well,
I mean,
there.
I think it does still it requires more from you. Like it doesn't do anything on its own. You need to be able to create tokens beyond just having this enchantment.
Right.
Which you're probably putting into your deck, obviously. And I think I feel for a rare, it's fine. I wouldn't be surprised if they ever reprint it, if they upshift it to Mythic, but that's just because it's a $50 card and needs more reprints because it shouldn't be $50.
Right. Well, Scryfall has it in Jumpstart Historic Horizons.
Right, which is a digital only format.
Right. So as long as we keep going, I think.
You know what else is in that? Tropical Islands.
Nice.
So
nice. Cute.
Yeah.
So generally speaking, if you're putting Parallel Lives in a deck, you're going to abuse the crap out of it, and you're going to be happy it's there. There are just so many cards that make a token creature, and every single set that comes out, you get more and more and more of them. This even works really well when you're dealing with a card that gives you a token until the end of the turn. Great, you just got another one. I mean, who cares if they're gone at the end of the turn? You just doubled that. I've run Parallel Lives in I don't know how many decks. One of the decks that I have enjoyed running it in is a deck that features Nakatl War Pride. I'm not going to go into too much details other than to say when it attacks, put X tokens into play, tapped and attacking, that are copies of Nakatl War Pride, where X is the number of creatures defending player controls. Remove the tokens from the game at the end of the turn.
And I mean, the first line is also relevant. It must be blocked by exactly one creature of Fable. So
right. So if you put X, it means that one of them gets through. If you have 2X, it means over half of them are getting through.
Yeah.
So it was, it was a nice way to set things up. And of course, I had a sack outlet, so I could kill them off and get a benefit before they disappeared on me.
Yeah.
So
sack the blocked ones and
sack the blocked ones and sack them all because they were leaving. I was losing them at the end of the.
Oh yeah, you sacked them all to.
I sacked them all to Altar of Dementia,
yeah.
which allowed me to, which forced my opponents to mill cards, and that got progressively more disgusting as we went along. But so Parallel Lives, just a great card. I mean, you're good. Considering the deck you're running it in, it's going to be an essential card. So
yeah. Before I get to my last one. Because that was 2, right? Yeah. Let's take it to break. We'll have a themed advertisement for you for our special Halloween. Yeah. Anyway, it's been a long day. We'll be right back. Boo-doo-doo.
This episode of Temple of the False Pod is brought to you by Deadeye Navigator. Just another one of the cards from our Innistrad set that perhaps, maybe you don't play it. Maybe. Just maybe. Maybe. Alright, now back to you, Andy.
Hey, we're back!
Hey!
We each have a card left.
Mm-hmm.
And a beautiful abundance of love for the plane of Innistrad.
Go team.
Go team. Go team vampires.
Go team Sorin.
Oh, go team.
Yeah, that's not popular.
Go team Markov or that is Sorin.
It's Sorin.
Go team. Who are the other ones? Falconroth.
Valdarin.
There's too many families.
Yes.
What is this? New Capenna? Anyway, my last card. Let me find it. My last card is Falconroth Noble.
Good card.
I really like my Tesa Karlov aristocrat deck. Much to the chagrin of everyone I play against, especially Bruce. But I mean, it all kind of starts with this card. I feel like this card specifically, sure, like the archetype is named probably more for Falconroth Aristocrat, because you can sack the creature itself.
Yeah.
But I feel like it's these type of effects, the Blood Artist effects, also an Innistrad card.
Right.
That I feel like this one does the thing I want it to do most.
Part of why I like the Noble, and I appreciate that the Noble only hits one person. Mm-hmm. There's a part of me that kind of likes that. I like the ability where if you're not out in front, you now get the opportunity to target the player who is. Yeah. You garner some goodwill from the table. Yes, they have a pretty good idea what's coming, but they're not going to slam you down. Until you start hitting everybody. Yeah. And as long as it's the Noble that's doing the job, then you're just focusing it on one guy and just, letting them have it. Yeah. And if they're killing, like if somebody's killing your creatures, you can just be like, oh, well, you take the damage, of course. Those who don't know, Falconroth Noble, 3 and a gray. 3 and a gray? 3 and a gray. Sure. 3 and a black, probably. 2/2 flyer, Vampire Noble. When Falconroth Noble or another creature dies, any creature, target player loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. I think it doesn't have to be yours. Yeah, and I think what also puts this above, there's 2 things more that put it above Blood Artist. Sure, it's 4 mana, but it's a 2/2, so you have the risk of incidental damage. Doesn't just right. Yeah. You can also keep it up as a blocker. You really can't with a 0/1 that Blood Artist is. Because, I mean, Blood Artist, you're not going to attack with it, but, like, you're definitely not going to block with it unless you really have to. I mean, Blood Artist has the strength of a fruit fly, It's an enchantment that somebody told to be a creature. Right. You blink at it the wrong way and it's gone. Whereas Falconroth Noble, sure, I know, 2/2 doesn't sound that much bigger, but a 2/2 with flying, in a worst case scenario, you get a chump block against that big nasty guy. I mean, obviously not what you want to be doing, but if you have to, you can. Yeah. And it also is a way to get in a couple extra points of damage here and there. Yeah, you can either fly over their heads and hit them, or you can block way up in the air, which is great. And just having that blocker, even though it could you'd have to chump with it. Right. Almost incentivizes the person with flying creatures to go elsewhere, just because they want to get that damage through. I love that card. Yeah. I know you do. Yeah. I'm also a fan of the Noble. primarily because, well, for any of you who've been listening to our podcast, you know full well, I am a Tombstone Stairwell junkie, and the Noble is vicious with Tombstone Stairwell. Just vicious. You've got a lot of tokens coming in and out, and if you're targeting the same player over and over again,
it's not going to take very long.
Take long. I mean, you're likely forcing one opponent to lose 6 life and gaining 6 life by the end of your first opponent's end step. Those sort of numbers, when they pile up with 4 players, things go fast.
Yeah.
So it's just something that I've enjoyed putting together and seeing watching that combo go to work. So all right,
that's my 3.
I got 1 left.
Yeah, 1 left.
1 left. And considering that I ran with Parallel Lives last time, I'm going to go with another enchantment. Pick a different color, and we're going to go with my next favorite option. If I can't get token creatures, I might as well get counters. There we go. Cathars Crusade.
Oh.
This is a beast. It's any white deck that is running, that is planning to run more than 4 creatures in it, can be running this deck, and it'll still work out well. And wow, if you're running token creatures, there's no reason for this card to not be in your deck. So, Cathars Crusade costs 5 mana. It's 3 generic, 2 white mana. It's an enchantment. It says, whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. So if you have 3 creatures out and you play a creature, all 4 of your creatures get a +1/+1 counter. If you play a spell that puts, 4 token creatures into play, then even if those are the only creatures you have, each of those creatures see each other going into the battlefield, and
they each get 4.
This gets miserable real fast, especially with token decks.
March of the Multitudes would be its best friend.
Right. I mean, I ran this with Sacred Mesa. Now, Sacred Mesa is nothing special. You spend 2 mana, you get a Pegasus token. So you put a Pegasus token out, it gets a +1/+1 counter on. Mm-hmm. When you put your next one out, they each get another one. You put the next one out, they each get another one. So there's a ton of +1/+1 counters floating around. And this is, quite honestly, with a card that really, as far as making tokens, is not particularly great. But, I mean, once you start building a deck that is revolving around token creation, Cathars Crusade is just ridiculous. Cathars Crusade out with when Avenger of Zendikar hits the battlefield. I mean, I don't know how many plant tokens you're getting, but they all just got huge. There are just so many ways to abuse this card, and it is delightful. I love the way this card works. I love how it pumps up stuff. And I will say that the Ozolith has brought a new dimension to Cathars Crusade, because when you destroy all of my creatures and laugh because, they've all lost their +1/+1 counters, you'll have to start all over again with tiny little creatures now, not this big, huge army of mass of tokens on top of them that you had before. That mass of tokens just gets shifted over to the Ozolith. And now you're waiting, because I'm waiting for the next creature that can swing, because the Ozolith is just going to make that insane. And for somebody who's a creature token junkie like myself, Cathars Crusade just does wonderful things. Suddenly, all the little bits of ping damage, and somebody does 2 damage to all creatures or does whatever. Cathars Crusade just. If you have Cathars Crusade out, it's likely that almost all of your creatures are at least 5/5s.
Yeah, and it really kind of messes with combat, because I mean, there are a lot of instant speed token makers.
Yes.
So you attack into somebody with Cathars Crusade, they make a bunch of tokens. Exactly. And they make a couple tokens, and all of a sudden the damage the combat that you had planned out no longer is relevant.
Right. Yeah. Especially with token creatures, it is so easy to produce them whenever you need one.
Oh yeah.
And when you're swinging into combat, and you can even sit there and make it known, make it clear. Yeah, I've got 4 mana up, and it costs me 2 mana to make a creature.
Yeah.
And then now the combat math is completely different. They have to assume that every creature there is going to have 2 more +1/+1 counters.
At least.
And figure it out from there.
Yeah.
And that makes it tough. I will say, the one downside for Cathars Crusade is all the fiddling.
Oh, yeah.
If you're not casting a spell that gives you X creatures, so then all of the creatures have the same number of tokens. If you're doing it incrementally, I cast a creature, they all get a counter. I do this creature, they all get a counter. The difficulty is that every single creature likely has a different number of counters on them because it's additive. So the creature that was on the battlefield at the start has more counters than the rest. But they're all different, which means that every time you cast a creature, you're now sitting there flipping every single die one. And then you cast another one and you're doing it all over again. Or, if you're casting 3 creatures, you cast 1, 2, 3, and then up everybody by 3, except for this one that goes up 2, except for this one that only goes up 1.
Yeah.
It can be...
it just takes a lot of time. Not a lot's happening, but it takes a lot of time.
And that's just it, and nothing's happening. So your opponents are just watching you flip dice to make sure the numbers are accurate.
You got to do what Brad does. Just get a bag of little pebbles and use those as counters.
And just keep dropping another pebble onto it.
And then you got to count them.
The key here is go as fast as you can. Try and keep all of this in mind, because honestly, the longer you take to figure out the counters on it from your Cathars Crusade, the more people are going to be pissed off about it.
Yeah,
they're already angry. They're already looking to target to get rid of it. But this just adds to it. While I admit I'm fairly gleefully flipping all of these around, you just have to glance up to realize that nobody else is having a good time watching you do this. So, so do your best to keep it moving along.
I thought you brought up a good point too, where generally you're going to have different amount of counters on everything, which goes really nicely with the new mechanic.
Yes.
Coven from
with creatures with different toughness.
Yeah.
Right. So then you can run your token so that way you can make token creatures that are all the same power and toughness, but they're all different because of
they came in at different times.
Right. So it
brilliant.
It adds there. There you go.
I'm excited to see how that kind of works out.
There you go. They're just working Cathars Crusade with Coven. They clearly had Cathars Crusade in mind when they created that ability.
Obviously. I'm excited for the new sets. I like that it's 2 sets back to back.
Yeah.
In the same place, maybe along the same storyline. It goes back 3 years to pre newest Dominaria, where everything was a block. I wonder if especially where next year they're going to be doing 2 Dominaria sets in a row. Mm-hmm. I wonder if they're planning on kind of bringing that mentality back of blocks.
I hope so. No, mostly just because I like the storyline setup that's available with a block format. This was all. Innistrad was also a great set for lands. Gavany Township, Kessick Wolf Run. These are all great cards. I like the plane. Looking forward to digging deep back into some of the older cards and mixing them around with some of the new sets.
Yeah.
As we go back more and more often, the viability of an Innistrad commander deck with just using Innistrad cards doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be a weak deck because it's only drawing from.
The Anya Falconroth. Yeah, the Anya Falconroth precon was pretty It wasn't super strong, but it did a lot. I really like that deck.
Edgar Markov. It's readily seen as one of the strongest.
They're saying he's going to be. They're saying he's the guy that gets married.
Edgar. Edgar was dead.
Dedgar
Markov.
I don't know.
Soren's grandpa, right?
Yeah, but they're all thousands of years old. It doesn't matter.
Gotta die sometime.
They're all thousands of years old, and Olivia's what, a couple hundred? Vampires are weird,
something like that. I don't know.
So,
anyways,
next week we got two things.
Yes.
One, it's even more Halloween-y. Because it'll be our Halloween episode.
Yes.
And two, it's our season finale, which means deck building. And I have a challenge for you. We've been talking a lot off mic about how this podcast isn't necessarily a Commander podcast.
Right.
It's heavily influenced by Commander because that's our preferred format.
Yeah. It's a lot of what we play.
Yeah. But we also play a lot of 60-card casual. So, challenge for us next week for our deck building finale extravaganza is our favorite zombie from another plane we're coming up again to, Dominaria, Lord of Tressorhorn.
I'm looking forward to seeing this. Lord of Tressorhorn is one of those cards that, I actually opened in an Alliances pack and have struggled to make this card work over and over again.
We can do it.
Should be good.
Here we go, episode 40 in T-minus 7 days.
Boom.
That's what we've got for you today. There's 6 cards plus some more from Innistrad. The plane, not just the set. We hope you're having an enjoyable autumn, and we'll see you next week with some new decks. Because we're Temple of the False Pod, where our decks are not optimized, but our plays sure as heck are fun. I'm Andy.
I'm Boos.
Haha. Have a great night, and may your 5th land be the Gavany Township.
No, it doesn't work.
May your 5th land be the Temple.
That's bad. Bye.
Hey everyone, Andy here. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Temple of the False Pod. Just a few housekeeping things here at the end of the show. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, pretty much wherever you can find podcasts. Subscribe and give us a review. It really helps out the show. And it'll show us what you like about our podcast. Also, we've got a Twitter and an Instagram. Our handle is FalsePodMTG, all one word. So be sure to follow us. Feel free to reach out to us there or drop us an email at falsepodmtg@gmail.com and tell us your favorite Magic-related story. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you again to you and to Bruce. He's Mana Burned on Twitter, and I'm Andy Weekend on Twitter and Twitch. We're Temple of the False Pod, where our decks aren't optimized, but our plays sure as heck are fun. Have a great night, and may your 5th land be the Temple.